You've been called weird your entire life, and you never fully disagreed, because you do things that nobody around you seems to do. You feel things nobody around you seems to feel. You notice things about people, about rooms, about conversations that everyone else walks right past without blinking. And for years you filed all of that under the same category. Strange, abnormal, something to manage, minimize, or hide. But what if every single thing that made you feel like you didn't belong was actually the most precise evidence that you were built differently for a reason? Not broken differently, not damaged differently, built differently. There are 7 specific things that genuine empaths do, quietly, consistently, often without even realizing it, that the rest of the world cannot explain and will never fully understand. These are not cute quirks. These are not personality traits you picked up along the way. These are the fingerprints of a nervous system so finely calibrated, so extraordinarily sensitive, that it operates on a completely different level than the average human experience. And if you have spent your whole life feeling like you were living on the wrong planet, this is why. Every single thing on this list is going to feel uncomfortably familiar, not because it was written about you specifically, but because genuine empaths, regardless of where they were born, how they were raised, what language they speak, share these experiences with an accuracy that defies coincidence. This is not a list of symptoms. This is not a diagnosis. This is your recognition. Finally, after all this time, so pay attention. Because by the end of this, you are not going to feel weird anymore. You are going to feel exactly what you should have been told you were from the very beginning. Rare. The first thing genuine empaths do, and almost every single one of them has felt ashamed of this at some point, is that they feel physically ill in the presence of conflict, even when the conflict has absolutely nothing to do with them. Not uncomfortable, not awkward, physically ill. 2 people across the room exchange a sharp word, a tension builds in a conversation you are not even part of. Someone nearby is suppressing anger behind a polite smile, and your body, your actual physical body, responds. Your stomach tightens, your chest constricts, your throat closes slightly. A wave of nausea moves through you that has no logical explanation because nothing happened to you directly. But here is what most empaths don't understand about this, and what changes everything once they do. Your body is not malfunctioning. Your body is translating. Your nervous system is so attuned to the emotional frequency of the people around you that it registers conflict as a physical threat, because to a genuine empath, energetic disharmony in the environment is a threat, not metaphorically. Neurologically, your mirror neurons are firing at a rate and intensity that most people simply don't. You are not imagining it. You are not being dramatic. You are receiving a transmission that most people's systems aren't even equipped to detect. The shocking truth about this that nobody tells you, you have probably spent years apologizing for this response, excusing yourself from rooms, avoiding gatherings, turning down invitations, and calling yourself antisocial when you were actually just unprotected. There is a monumental difference between someone who doesn't want to be around people and someone whose nervous system is overwhelmed by absorbing all of them simultaneously. You were never antisocial. You were overexposed and under-equipped, and that distinction matters more than you know. The second thing genuine empaths do is something that has confused, frustrated, and isolated them more than almost anything else on this list. They cannot be lied to, not because they are exceptionally intelligent, not because they have studied deception, but because when someone lies to them, something in their body simply knows, immediately, before the logical mind has time to construct a counter-argument or give the benefit of the doubt. The words coming out of the person's mouth say one thing. Everything underneath those words, the micro-tension in their energy, the slight misalignment between what they're saying and what they're radiating says something completely different. And the empathy feels both, simultaneously, in real time. And then the most exhausting part begins, because you feel the lie, but you have no proof, and the world runs on proof. So you stay quiet, you second guess yourself, you override the signal with logic, and give the person another chance, and then another, and then another, until eventually the truth comes out and you are standing there with the devastating realization that you always knew, from the very first moment. Here's the brutal truth that lives inside this particular gift. Every time you have overridden your knowing in favor of someone else's explanation, you have betrayed yourself, not them, yourself, because your body told you the truth and you chose the comfortable lie instead, not because you were stupid, because you were kind, because your empathy made you want to be wrong, because you understood their reasons for lying even as you were being lied to, and that understanding became the very mechanism of your own deception. That ends the moment you decide your knowing is worth trusting. The third thing genuine empaths do is one that sounds almost impossible until you have experienced it yourself. They take on the physical symptoms of other people's pain and illness. Not emotionally, physically. Someone close to them is experiencing chronic back pain, and suddenly, for no medical reason, their back aches. Someone they love is carrying anxiety in their chest, and suddenly their own chest feels tight. They spend an extended period of time with someone who is deeply depressed, and they leave that interaction with a heaviness in their limbs, a fog in their mind, and exhaustion in their body that sleep doesn't fix. Doctors find nothing. Tests come back clean. And the empath is left wondering if they are going insane. Because the pain is real. The physical sensation is absolutely real. It just doesn't belong to them. This is called clairsentience. And it is one of the most disorienting, least discussed, most widely shared experiences among genuine empaths on the planet. Here's what you must understand about this. And this is the mindset shift that changes how you relate to your own body permanently. Your body is not sick. Your body is speaking. Every unexplained physical sensation you experience in the presence of others is your system's way of communicating information that your conscious mind hasn't processed yet. It is data, extraordinarily accurate, deeply personal data about the energy of tea, people and environments you are immersed in. The problem was never that your body was doing this. The problem was that nobody taught you how to read what it was saying. The fourth thing genuine empaths do is something that has cost them more relationships, more opportunities, and more peace of mind than almost anything else. They need enormous, almost incomprehensible amounts of alone time, and they feel guilty about it every single time. Not alone time the way an introvert needs quiet after social interaction. Something deeper than that, something more urgent, a pull towards solitude that is almost physical in its intensity, a visceral need to be alone, in silence, with no emotional input from any other human being, just to return to themselves, just to find out where they end and everyone else begins. Because here's what happens to a genuine empath. In a world full of people, they lose themselves, gradually, invisibly, without even noticing it's happening. They absorb so many frequencies, so many emotions, so many fragments of other people's inner worlds, that by the end of a day of regular human interaction, they genuinely cannot locate their own feelings underneath all the ones they've collected from everyone else. The alone time is not preference. It is not selfishness. It is not social anxiety, dressed up in spiritual language. It is the only method available to an unprotected empath for separating their own signal from all the noise they've absorbed. And the shocking truth, the one that should reframe every time you have ever apologized for needing space, is this. Every person who ever made you feel guilty for needing that solitude was unknowingly asking you to slowly disappear. They were asking you to stay so absorbed in the collective frequency that you could never quite find yourself again. They were asking you to be endlessly available to everyone else. at the direct cost of being completely unavailable to yourself. Your solitude is not abandonment. Your solitude is how you survive. And more than survive, how you come back to yourself whole enough to actually give something real. The fifth thing genuine empaths do, and this one is going to land differently depending on how honest you are willing to be with yourself, is that they attract broken people. Consistently, across every area of their life, romantically, platonically, professionally. Wherever they go, whoever needs fixing, healing, saving, or holding together seems to find them with an accuracy that feels less like coincidence and more like targeting. And for a long time, maybe for most of your life, you told yourself this was proof of your purpose, proof that you were meant to help, proof that your sensitivity existed to serve the people who needed it most. That is chill true, and almost entirely dangerous. Because here is the brutal truth about why broken people find empaths with such unerring precision. You broadcast safety. You radiate acceptance. You emit a frequency that says, "Bring me your worst and I will not leave." And to someone who has been abandoned, rejected, or never truly held, that frequency is the most intoxicating thing they have ever encountered. They are not drawn to your light because they want to grow toward it. Most of them are drawn to your light because they want to consume it. And you, because you can feel their pain so completely, because their wound resonates inside you like it is your own. You let them, again and again and again. You give and give until you are empty, and then you blame yourself for being empty. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Your empathy is not an obligation to heal everyone who finds you. It is a gift, and gifts have recipients, not hostages. The moment you understand that choosing who receives your energy is not cruelty, but wisdom, everything about the pattern changes. You stop being a destination for the broken and start being a magnet for the ready. The people who don't just need you, but who are actually capable of meeting you. The sixth thing genuine empaths do is something that makes perfect sense once you understand how their system works, but that the outside, E-world, consistently misreads as rudeness, flakiness, or emotional instability. They cancel plans at the last minute because the energy suddenly feels wrong. Everything was fine. The plan was made. They genuinely intended to go. And then something shifts. A heaviness descends. A knowing, wordless, reasonless, impossible to explain to someone who doesn't experience it. That going to that place, being around those people, entering that particular energetic environment tonight is going to cost them something they cannot afford to lose right now. And so they cancel. And then they spend the next 3 hours drowning in guilt, not because they did something wrong, but because they could not produce an explanation that the other person would accept. Because the energy feels off is not a socially acceptable reason. Because I just know I shouldn't go sounds like an excuse to someone whose body doesn't speak that language. But it is not an excuse. It is intelligence, energetic intelligence, the kind that cannot be measured in a lab or validated by conventional logic, but that genuine empaths have relied on, consciously or unconsciously, their entire lives. The kind that has kept them out of situations that later revealed themselves to be exactly as wrong as the feeling warned them. The kind that has protected them in ways they will never be able to fully account for, because the protection happened before the danger arrived. Stop apologizing for listening to it. The gut feeling of a genuine empath is not superstition. It is not anxiety. It is not avoidance, dressed up as intuition. It is the most sophisticated, early warning system available to a human being. And every time you override it to avoid an awkward conversation, you pay for it. The seventh thing genuine empaths do, the one that is perhaps the most misunderstood, the most minimized, the most frequently used against them, is that they cry, not occasionally, not only at funerals and breakups, deeply, regularly, seemingly without warning, at things that other people walk past without a second glance, a piece of music, a stranger's expression of genuine joy, an old photograph, a moment of unexpected human kindness between two people who have nothing to do with them. Something beautiful, something true, something that for a single second cuts through all the noise and performance and pretending and just is, and the tears come, real, immediate, unstoppable, and the world watches and says, "Why are you crying at that?" And the empath has no answer that translates, because the answer is, because it is real. Because in a world that is mostly surface, something genuine just broke through. And my system responds to genuine the way a parched body responds to water. Here is the core truth that holds all 7 of these things together. The one truth that reframes every weird, confusing, isolating experience on this list into something you can stand inside with your full spine. None of these things are disorders. None of them are deficiencies. None of them are evidence that you need to be fixed. They are evidence that you were running an operating system so advanced that the average environment was simply not built to support it. You have been trying to run extraordinary hardware on infrastructure designed for ordinary processing, and then blaming yourself for the crashes. The crashes were never your fault. The system was never the problem. The environment was. And the moment you stop trying to downgrade yourself to fit spaces that were never designed for someone like you, and start building a life that can actually hold your full capacity, everything changes. Not gradually, not eventually, completely. So here you are, 7 things, 7 specific, honest, deeply personal experiences that you have probably never heard named out loud. At least not with this level of clarity and zero apology. And I need you to sit with what just happened inside you as you listened. Because something did happen. Something shifted. Some part of you that has been quietly carrying the weight of being misunderstood for years, maybe for your entire life, just exhaled, just felt for the first time that the thing you have been trying to explain to people who couldn't hear it was always real. It was always real. You were always real. And you were never as strange as they made you feel. But here's where most empaths make the critical mistake. The one that turns recognition into nothing more than a moment of temporary comfort. They feel seen by the information, and then they go back to the exact same life that has been slowly draining them. They feel validated by the truth, and then they continue to override it the moment it becomes inconvenient. They understand deeply and change nothing. Do not do that. Understanding without application is just sophisticated suffering. You now know what you are. You now have language for experiences you have been silently carrying your entire life. That knowledge is only as powerful as what you choose to do with it starting right now. So here is your assignment. Singular, specific, non-negotiable. Take the one thing from this list that hit hardest. The one that made something in your chest tighten with recognition. The one you have been most consistently punishing yourself for. The guilt about needing solitude, the self-betrayal of overriding your knowing, the shame around absorbing everyone's pain and calling yourself weak for it. Take that one thing and make one decision about it today. Not a life overhaul, not dramatic inano, uncement. One quiet, firm, self-respecting decision that says, I know what this is now, and I am done treating it like a flaw. Because here's the final truth, the one I need to leave inside you long after this ends. Every single one of these 7 things, every weird, inexplicable, world doesn't understand you quality you have spent years trying to manage, minimize, and apologize for, is part of the same extraordinary architecture. They are not separate quirks. They are one coherent, unified, breathtakingly rare way of being human. And the world does not need you to be less of it. The world needs teachers who can feel their students' confusion before it becomes failure, It needs leaders who can sense the fracture in a team before it becomes collapse. It needs healers who don't just treat the symptom, but feel the root. It needs parents, partners, friends, creators, humans who refuse to live at the surface when depth is available. The world needs you, fully expressed. Completely unapologetic, exactly as strange and extraordinary and rare as you actually are. So stop shrinking the gift because the world hasn't learned to hold it yet. Grow until they do. That is not arrogance. That is not ego. That is the only response worthy of what you were given. Now act like it.